Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Laz Jr. Do me one favor, hit that subscribe button, subscribe to my channel. I would gladly appreciate it. Also, hit the like button because it helps the algorithm. So, this young lady by the name of Riley Guinness, she is going to expose Lia Thomas, that is the trans woman male who was a swimmer. He's a biological man, but he's swimming with the women, and this has been going on for the past few years. Anyway, let's get into it.
A former University of Kentucky women's swimming star who's called out the Biden administration over what she calls its gender ideology propaganda. Attending the State of the Union address last night, Riley Gaines raising concerns about a White House push for transgender athletes to compete in sports based on their gender identity rather than their biological sex. It comes after she was forced to compete against transgender swimmer Lia Thomas last year in an event where they tied for 5th place. Joining us now is Riley Gaines, 12-time NCAA All-American swimmer, a former 5-time SEC champion, and spokeswoman for the Independent Women's Forum. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
So this was your first State of the Union address. What'd you think?
You know, it was definitely a unique experience. I enjoyed meeting everyone, but of course there were some theatrics that almost are a bit comical coming from these countries' leaders. But I enjoyed it. There was, of course, some key issues that I was wondering if they would be addressed, to which that was answered for me.
Yeah. I don't think that the president was going to get into your particular issue during the State of the Union address. But we should, for the audience, point out that you have been a tireless campaigner to ensure female athletes have an equal opportunity to perform in women's sports. Let me just repeat that. To ensure female athletes have an equal opportunity to perform in women's sports. The fact that you even have to do that is beyond ironic.
It's beyond ironic, and honestly, you have all these people all the time tell me how courageous it is to speak to this and how brave I am. But truthfully, does it make someone brave to just acknowledge that women deserve equal opportunities? That's how far we've come as a society and within our culture.
Right, and you have been roundly criticized by many people for taking this stance.
Right.
But this is a situation that is unique to women's sports because you don't hear about male athletes fighting to make sure that male athletes have an equal opportunity to compete in men's sports.
No.
I mean, if a woman transitions to a man and competes in men's sports, it's going to be no competition.
Exactly.
But if it goes the other way around, as it did with Lia Thomas.
Yep, just what he said. Yep. Now, if a man transitions over into being and playing a women's sport, it's going to be no competition. That's right. That's why he's destroying the women in the sport, because he's biological a man. Excuse me, he's a biological man. And, you know, from a man's perspective, a lot of men are going to think like this: you couldn't beat us over here in a man's competition with swimming, and you was getting your butt whooped. So you decided to go over here with a woman. And you're a biological man. That's how a lot of men would see it. Let's get back into it.
You go from number 462 to number 1 overnight.
Exactly, and I think that's important, worth noting. All of these state bills that are being passed, everyone who's arguing in opposition of these fairness in women's sports bills, they're talking about trans women being able to compete. And it's because trans men, they're not under jeopardy. The men's category is not under threat. It's the women's category that's under threat.
Right. So one of the things that you are campaigning against with the NCAA is to make sure that men who have transitioned to be a woman do not share the same locker room as female athletes.
Correct.
Did you share a locker room with Lia Thomas?
Yes, the NCAA, of course, we competed against Thomas, but we were not forewarned beforehand that we would be sharing a locker room with Lia. We did not give our consent. They did not ask for our consent. But in that locker room, we turned around and there's a 6'4" biological man dropping his pants and watching us undress. And we're exposed to male genitalia. And so that
Because
to me,
he hasn't had surgery, gender-affirming surgery.
correct, at the time, correct. And so that to me was worse than the competition piece. Not even probably a year or 2 years ago, this would have been considered some form of sexual assault.
Yep. See, you know, this is the way of the world. You know, the Bible has to be fulfilled. Jesus said there's nothing new under the sun, meaning all of these things are going to happen. there's so many things that's been happening for years that's going to happen. And, you know, they're showing that it's okay for this man to do what he's doing. And what other people think about this trans woman who is a biological man, it's okay. And it's not okay. They had no respect for these young ladies. And when I mean they, I mean the organization, the people who was in charge of this program that they're running for these young women. That's not right. I mean, what would happen if it was the other way around and it was a woman or girl playing, you know, getting dressed and undressed in the man's locker room, and we're like, yo, she just took off her clothes, and we're like, yo, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on, let's just call it what it is. My goodness, man. Let's get into it.
Voyeurism. But now, not even are they just allowing it to happen, it's almost as if these large organizations are encouraging it to happen. Of course, after our NCAA championships, the NCAA then nominated Thomas for NCAA Woman of the Year. So we're celebrating this movement. This isn't something that happened by chance on a one-off basis. They're encouraging men to compete in women's sports.
Now, following graduation, it was your intent to go to dental school. You have put that off because you want to continue this battle that you have begun. And you told me off camera that you're hoping that other female athletes
Correct.
will step up to the plate here, but they're not.
Correct.
And why don't you think they are?
You know, people are terrified, especially speaking from my experience of talking to other NCAA swimmers specifically. Leah Thomas's teammates even, they're told their school has made their stance for them. They're told that if they feel uncomfortable seeing male genitalia in the locker room, then they should seek counseling resources. They're told that they will never get into grad school if they speak out. All of these terrible, awful things that aren't true. They're told, of course, they'll be called a bigot and hateful and transphobic. But it doesn't make you any of those things to acknowledge that there are two sexes. You cannot change your sex, and women deserve respect and equal opportunities.
We'll keep watching you, and we hope that you'll get the chance to go to dental school one of these days.
Thank you so much.
Riley, good to meet you.
Yes, of course.
She's right. I mean, I can't disagree with what the young lady's saying. I mean, respectfully so, she has her rights, she has her opinion, and I agree with her, everything that she said, because, I mean, man, ooh, man, this is the way that the world is going. And either you're gonna either you're gonna get with the program or you're not. You have the left fighting against the right fighting against the left. No, these values, and it's like, okay, man, it's a mess, is what it is. It's a mess. We have women sports, and we have sports for the men. That is it. That is all. In this world, there are two genders: women and men. That's it. There are a small percentage of hermaphrodites, or people who had things that happen with their body. Okay, we know that. For the most part, it's two genders: women and men. Anyway, guys, what do you think? Please comment. God bless.